we have to study RBI's reserve and surplus capital. Before we study what this reserve and surplus capital means, but what we have to study is why have I taken this particular topic. Now we know that Reserve Bank of India is the apex monetary authority of the country, right? So it is the apex monetary authority which has the vision of for an entire macroeconomy of India. And but natural, it needs to have a very strong capital base, right? It needs to have a very strong capital base. Why? Because it is the regulator of the entire banking sector, it is the supervisor of the entire banking sector, it monitors the entire payment systems in the country. And if there is a bank which is the Reserve Bank of India at the apex, at the top, there must be some other banks at the there must be some very strong base of that apex authority which can make that Reserve Bank of India, or which can make that central bank the leader or the authority having a strong capital base which is now able to regulate the entire economic system. Now you need to have this capital base. Why? Because at the lower end we have a lot of banks that need money from the RBI, and RBI is the lender of the last resort, as well as we have already studied. During the time of crisis, a bank turns to RBI for help, and RBI tends to give them help at a particular rate or whatever. So RBI is the lender of the last resort. It's considered as a father figure in the banking sector. So if the banks are in distress, RBI comes in and helps the bank with the resolution process. So if RBI is helping the banks, RBI needs to have some money, RBI needs to have some capital. So that needs to RBI needs to have a strong capital base. So RBI के पास अच्छा खासा capital होना चाहिए. But the question is, ये capital कहाँ से RBI लाएगा? The money that the RBI has to have, it goes in lakhs and lakhs of crores. How can RBI have that money? How can RBI create that money? Does RBI print that money? No, RBI does not print that money. How does RBI have the strong capital base? Now, for example, RBI says to run the entire economy, RBI needs to have, say, for example, 5 lakh crore of capital base. How much? RBI needs to have a capital of 5 lakh crores. Now, how can RBI have a 5 lakh crore capital? RBI cannot print the capital. RBI को पैसे चाहिए, वो print नहीं कर सकता. RBI has to earn this capital. RBI has to earn this capital, and RBI does earn this capital. Now, it is the apex monetary authority. The best and the most professional economists, they reach at the apex of their careers. They reach this particular apex authority. They become the governor or the deputy governor of the RBI, and they become the members of the RBI, and they run the entire show, right? So they know how to earn the money. They know what are the various financial instruments in which RBI should invest so that it can earn a lot of money to have a strong capital base. So RBI being the apex authority, it also has to earn money. It also has to earn money. Why? To have a strong capital base, to have a strong capital base. So this is how we have started this topic with the need for a capital base of the RBI and the need of earning money for the RBI. Now, when RBI needs, suppose, some profits, now we say, for example, the gross profits. We have the gross profits of RBI. So when you have the gross profits of RBI, and these are the gross profits, say, fine, the total profits, and out of the total profits, you cut cost of investment. Say, for example, RBI invested money in government bonds. Say, for example, RBI invested money in government bonds. Now, RBI purchased a bond of 100 rupees. RBI purchased a bond of rupees 100. So, rupees 100 would be the cost of this investment. Fine. So, at rupees 100, we have purchased this bond. Now, RBI will be earning a lot of interest on this bond, say, for example, of a 10% or a 15%. This 10 to 15% will be the profit, and this 100 will be the cost, right? So we have to actually deduct cost of investments from the profit. So when you deduct the cost from the profit, what you get is called surplus. What you get is called surplus of RBI. Surplus of RBI. Just remember this point. So gross profits minus cost will give you surplus. So whatever gross profits the RBI had, you deduct the cost, and then what you'll get is the surplus. So RBI, which I have told you, RBI has to earn a lot of money. And when RBI has to earn a lot of money, RBI is investing money in, say, for example, government bonds. Say, for example, RBI also earns money in investing in gold, investing in international instruments, and now these or foreign currency bonds. Now, RBI does invest money in all these things. Then RBI, after investing this money, RBI earns some gross profits. And out of these gross profits, you have to deduct the cost of this particular investment. And what you'll get is the surplus. What you'll get is the surplus. So this is what we call the surplus or surplus of RBI. Okay, surplus of RBI. Now, this surplus, when there is an aggregate of surplus, just try to remember this. When now RBI has the surplus, and surplus is for 2020, then 2021, then 2022, then 2023. We have the surplus of this year, and this year. Then we do the aggregate of the entire surplus. When you do the aggregate of the surplus, when you go for the aggregation of the surplus, what you will get is the asset of RBI. What you'll get is the asset of RBI. So that is the RBI's asset. Fine, the total asset base of RBI. So when you have the surplus, then you go for the aggregation of the entire surplus for all these years. What you'll get is the asset. Then asset is divided into two parts. Asset of RBI is divided into two parts. One is known as the dividend. And second is known as the capital. Suppose the asset is for 10 lakh crores. Dividend would be, say, for example, 1 lakh crore, and capital would be 9 lakh crore. And this 1 lakh crore dividend will be transferred to the government of India, and this capital will be held by RBI. It will be held by RBI. Now the question is, why are you transferring this dividend to government of India? Because as RBI works on the RBI Act of 1934, and in this RBI Act of 1934, RBI, there is a section 47, Chapter 4. In this section 47, Chapter 4, it is clear-cut mentioned allocation of surplus funds. Allocation of surplus funds to the government of India. So there is a clear-cut chapter in the RBI Act in which RBI is told that whatever surplus you have and the aggregate of the surplus, then the asset, and under the asset, the dividend, this dividend has to be transferred to the government of India. It has to be transferred to the government of India. Why government of India? But national government of India. RBI is an agent of government of India. So whatever earnings the RBI has, the entire total assets of RBI are divided into dividend and capital. The capital is to be held by RBI, and RBI will decide how much capital I will have to hold to run the economy, and how much dividend I will have to transfer to the government of India. Okay, so this is the entire concept of surplus transfer. So what do we have learned right until now? So if whenever you go for an investment, you have the gross profits. Out of those gross profits, you have to subtract the cost. With the cost, you'll get the surplus, and after the surplus, you'll have to go for an aggregation of the surplus. And when you go for the aggregation of the surplus, you'll get the assets, and assets are divided into dividend and capital. Dividend will be transferred to government of India, and capital will be held by Reserve Bank of India.